Scattered across the highest mountain peaks on every continent, you can find perfectly carved stone basins with no clear purpose. These precise carved basins represent one of archaeology's most profound global mysteries, challenging everything we think we know about ancient civilizations. By the end of this journey, you will discover how these enigmatic structures could rewrite chapters of our human story. We will investigate why cultures from the Andes to the Himalayas went to such extraordinary lengths to shape these stones in the most inaccessible places, and what forgotten knowledge might be encoded in their geometric perfection. What does it say about humanity that our ancestors left such permanent, puzzling marks on the roof of the world? These stone basins form a global network of unanswered questions. High in the Peruvian Andes, the Baños del Inca present a series of perfectly sculpted tubs carved directly into the mountainside at altitudes exceeding 9,000 feet. Far across the world, on the slopes of Turkey's Mount Ararat, researchers document nearly identical forms. This pattern repeats in the Himalayas and the remote highlands of other continents. The profound mystery lies in their separation. These cultures were divided by vast oceans and impassable mountain ranges, with no known trade routes or shared languages connecting them. Yet they all invested immense effort to create the same strange stone features at the roof of the world. This cannot be a simple coincidence. We are not looking at random erosion or natural potholes. The consistency is in the craftsmanship, the deliberate shaping of hard stone into smooth, geometric containers with a clear, though now forgotten, intention. This widespread presence transforms isolated oddities into a single, global archaeological phenomenon. What fundamental human impulse, what shared piece of lost knowledge, compelled such similar endeavors in the most demanding environments on Earth? The answer might reveal a common thread in our development, a chapter of the human story that we are only just beginning to read. The true mystery of these mountain basins begins with their flawless geometry. What you find at these high altitudes are not rough hollows or natural dips in the stone. They are deliberate creations, carved with a precision that defies simple explanation. Their shapes are often perfect circles or sharp rectangles, with interiors smoothed to an almost polished finish. This is not the work of weather or time. It is the signature of a skilled craftsperson, a clear mark of human intention left upon the most unyielding rock. Look closer and the details deepen the puzzle. These basins are not all the same size. Some are just a few feet across, large enough for a person to sit within. Others stretch for several yards, forming immense stone containers. They rarely appear alone. More often, they are found in groups, arranged in patterns or sequences that suggest a complex, unified design. The most telling clue is in the joins, the places where separate stones meet. In many sites, the fit is so perfect, so seamless, that it points to a profound understanding of stonework. This is the kind of advanced stonemasonry we associate with the world's great ancient structures, yet here it is, replicated on remote, wind-scoured peaks. And if you run your hand along the inner surface of the best-preserved examples, you can sometimes feel them, faint, parallel lines, the subtle scars left by tools. These marks are the final proof that these forms were made, not born. They are artifacts. The quality is undeniable, on par with the stonework of famous sacred sites. But at places like Machu Picchu or the pyramids, the magnificent architecture is the centerpiece of a vast cultural complex. Here, there are no grand plazas, no towering temples. There is only the mountain, the sky, and these inexplicably perfect stone bowls. This isolation, this choice to place such technical mastery where almost no one would ever see it, is what transforms them from simple artifacts into one of history's most compelling riddles. The mystery deepens in one of the planet's most isolated landscapes. In the remote Siberian wilderness, Mount Shoria rises like a forgotten fortress, its slopes home to stone basins of staggering scale and precision. These are not the small, intimate bowls found elsewhere. Here, the granite has been shaped into massive containers, some so large they could comfortably hold several people at once. Their smooth, concave interiors curve with a geometric perfection that feels almost machined, a stark contrast to the raw, untamed mountain surrounding them. Local indigenous legends whisper of a time when giants or powerful ancient beings used these immense stone vessels for ritual purification, a story that lends an air of deep time and forgotten ceremonies to the cold, hard stone. For archaeologists, however, these legends are a starting point for a much more complex puzzle. The rock itself is a major part of the enigma. This is not a soft stone easily worked by hand. This is granite, one of the hardest materials on Earth, and the basins are carved into solid, living bedrock. What kind of tools could have hollowed out such smooth, perfect curves in this incredibly resilient material, and with such consistent, flawless results? The positioning of the basins adds another layer of intrigue. They are often found close to natural water sources like mountain springs, suggesting a connection to liquid. Yet, the basins themselves show no telltale signs of erosion from constantly flowing water. Their surfaces remain unnervingly smooth, their edges sharp and defined, as if they were used for holding still water, not for channeling it. This fact alone challenges many practical theories. Why build such monumental, technically advanced containers for water in a location where water is already abundant and accessible? The sheer remoteness of Mount Shoria makes the accomplishment even more difficult to comprehend. This is a harsh, unforgiving environment, far from any known ancient settlement. The effort required to not only reach this place but to then execute such demanding stonework with impeccable skill is almost beyond modern imagination. It forces us to ask whether we are underestimating the capabilities and the motivations of the people who came before us, and what truly important purpose could have compelled them to leave such a permanent, puzzling mark in the sky. The flawless surfaces of these basins present a technological riddle as deep as their purpose. How could ancient people, working with what we assume were simple stone tools, achieve such precision in granite and basalt, some of the hardest rocks on Earth? Modern experiments have tried to recreate this work using stone hammers and sand abrasives. The results are telling. While these methods can eventually shape rock, they cannot replicate the smooth, polished finish or the exact geometric curves found in the original basins. The surfaces created by these experimental techniques are rough and uneven, lacking the almost liquid smoothness of the ancient examples. This discrepancy points towards a missing piece of the puzzle, a lost technique or tool that granted these early craftspeople a level of control we struggle to understand. Beyond simple pounding and grinding, some of the stone surfaces show subtle signs of a more complex process. There is evidence that heat may have been applied to the rock, a method that could make the stone easier to work by causing microfractures. This is not brute force, it is a sophisticated application of thermal science, a technique not typically attributed to the cultures believed to have created these forms. The logistical challenge only magnifies the mystery. Imagine the physical strain of performing such delicate, demanding work at altitudes where the air is thin and the weather can turn deadly in moments. Every swing of a hammer, every precise measurement would have been exponentially more difficult. This was not a quick task. It would have required a sustained, organized effort over a long period, all while surviving in an environment that tests human limits. This construction conundrum forces a profound question. Have we fundamentally underestimated the technological ingenuity of our ancestors? The conventional timeline of human development suggests that such fine stonework should not exist in these places and times. Yet the evidence is carved indelibly into the mountain rock. The basins stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten chapter in human innovation, hinting at a school of knowledge, a way of working with the very bones of the earth that was mastered and then lost to time. What urgent need or profound belief could have driven the development of such advanced methods, only for them to vanish from our collective memory? The answer may not lie in the tools themselves, but in the powerful reasons they were used in such impossible places. Yet this mastery of stone extends far beyond Siberia's lonely peaks. In the Peruvian Andes, the mystery multiplies in both scale and complexity. Here, the enigmatic basins are not just solitary features, they are woven into the very fabric of the landscape, integrated into some of the most famous archaeological sites in the world. At the breathtaking citadel of Machu Picchu, you can find them, these perfectly carved stone receptacles, sitting quietly beside grand temples and terraced gardens. At the fortress of Ollantaytambo, more appear, their smooth surfaces a testament to the Inca's legendary stonemasonry. But the most compelling sight might be Moray, a place that feels otherworldly. Here, vast, concentric circular terraces sink deep into the earth, creating a natural amphitheater of agriculture. Built into these terraces are sophisticated stone basins and channels, a complex hydraulic system that seems to have been used for experimental farming, perhaps to test crops at different microclimatic levels. This suggests a deeply practical, almost scientific purpose, but then you look higher to the isolated mountain peaks far above any settlement. Here, completely alone, sit more of these basins, identical in their precise workmanship but utterly divorced from any apparent utility. Why would the Incas or their predecessors expend such immense effort to carve these perfect stone bowls in places so remote and difficult to reach that they serve no obvious agricultural or domestic need? This is the central contradiction of the Peruvian examples. The Incas were undoubtedly master stoneworkers, yet many of these basins are found in contexts that predate their empire, pointing to an even older, more mysterious tradition that the Incas may have inherited and continued. Some of the most isolated high-altitude basins are aligned with specific celestial events, catching the first light of the solstice sun or framing a particular star. This hints at an astronomical function, a way of marking time or connecting with the heavens from the top of the world. But the exact ritual, the precise moment or ceremony that filled these stone containers with meaning, remains just out of reach. The Peruvian landscape demonstrates that these are not one single mystery, but many. They are artifacts that could serve agriculture, astronomy, and ritual, sometimes all at once, their purpose shifting with the context, leaving us with a dazzling, frustrating puzzle of stone and intention. The stone itself holds secrets that time has not erased. Geological analysis reveals that these basins were often carved from rock that did not originate on the mountain peaks where they rest. The specific granite or basalt used was frequently quarried from miles away, requiring the transport of multi-ton stones up impossible slopes. This was not a casual choice of material. The selected rock often possesses unique properties, a high quartz content or an exceptional density that makes it incredibly durable and resistant to the elements. It seems these ancient builders were not just skilled craftworkers, they were also master geologists, intentionally choosing the most resilient stone for a purpose meant to last for ages. When scientists examine these surfaces under magnification, the story becomes even more intriguing. The microscopic marks left by tools are often far too fine and consistent to have been made by simple stone hammers. The patterns suggest the use of specialized implements, perhaps employing diamond-hard abrasives or sophisticated percussion techniques that allowed for a level of precision we struggle to explain. This is not the rough work of trial and error, it is the signature of a refined and repeatable method, a lost technology applied with confident skill. Even the slow caress of wind and rain on the stone provides a clue. By studying the weathering patterns, the subtle ways the rock has been worn down over centuries, researchers can begin to estimate their incredible age. Some basins show patination and erosion that suggest they have been gazing at the sky for millennia, placing their creation in a time long before the written histories of the cultures we traditionally associate with these regions. The rock itself is a silent witness, its surface a timeline we are only learning to read. Each mineral grain, each microscopic scratch, is a piece of encoded information about the people who shaped it, their knowledge, and their profound determination to leave a permanent mark on the roof of the world. This celestial connection transforms the stone from simple containers into something far more profound. The positioning of many basins reveals a deep, intentional relationship with the sky. High in the Bolivian Andes, for instance, you find sites where narrow stone channels are carved to act like a precise lens. For just a few moments on the dawn of a solstice, a single beam of sunlight will travel directly through this rock passageway to illuminate one specific basin, filling it with light while the surrounding area remains in shadow. This is not a random effect. It is a carefully engineered event, a moment of celestial theater performed once a year, written in stone and sunlight. Across other mountain sites, clusters of basins are arranged in patterns that mirror the positions of important stars or the extreme points of the moon's journey across the sky. Their precise angles and orientations form a permanent map of the heavens, etched directly into the mountaintop. For the people who built them, these alignments would have been critically important. Tracking the sun's journey was essential for knowing when to plant and when to harvest, turning the shifting seasons into a matter of survival. The lunar and stellar cycles provided a calendar for ceremonial life, marking times for community gatherings and spiritual observances. The basins in this light were not just observatories, they were the library and the clock. They held the knowledge of time itself, a way to synchronize human life with the grand, predictable rhythms of the cosmos. This implies the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and mathematics, capable of making complex calculations and translating them into immense, permanent stone structures. They were not merely watching the sky, they were collaborating with it, building markers that would forever calibrate their world to the movements of the sun, the moon, and the stars. The mountain peaks became the perfect platform for this cosmic connection, a place where the earth reached closest to the heavens, allowing humanity to anchor the celestial dance into the very bedrock below. The Armenian highlands hold their own silent conversation with the sky. Around the slopes of Mount Aragat, these enigmatic stone basins emerge from the rugged terrain, placed at altitudes that challenge our understanding of ancient life. Here, they are never truly alone. They exist as part of a greater whole, surrounded by fields of ancient petroglyphs and the silent watchfulness of standing stones. Together, these elements form a complex ritual landscape, a sacred geography where every rock and carving seems to hold a piece of a forgotten story. Local traditions, passed down through generations, often weave these basins into the legends of Vahan, a powerful deity of fire, war, and storms. This association hints at a ceremonial purpose, where the basins might have been central to rituals involving the primal elements of fire or the sanctity of water. It is a compelling thread connecting cold stone to the vibrant tapestry of ancient belief. Yet even this rich context deepens the mystery rather than solving it. The basins themselves are marvels of precise stonemasonry, their smooth, concave forms carved with a clear and skilled intention. They do collect rainwater and snowmelt, a simple, practical function. But their flawless construction feels excessive for such a basic need. Why carve a perfect geometric vessel with such care, only to leave it to the whims of the weather? The complexity grows when you trace the subtle networks carved into the rock. Some of these basins are connected by intricate channel systems, a sequence of stone containers linked together to guide liquid from one to the next. This was not merely about storage, it was about controlled flow, a deliberate movement of water from basin to basin for a reason we can only guess at. Was it for purification, each step in the sequence representing a stage in a spiritual cleansing? Or was it part of an ancient scientific experiment, a way to measure or filter this most vital resource? The Armenian examples present a beautiful paradox. The cultural stories of gods and rituals illuminate a possible spiritual dimension, giving life to the stone. But at the same time, the sheer technical sophistication of the structures obscures their mundane use, pushing us to look for a purpose that marries profound belief with advanced engineering. This is the enduring power of these sites. They show us that the line between the practical and the sacred for our ancestors was often invisible. The most logical explanation for these stone containers might be the simplest one: water. In the thin, dry air of high mountain ranges, a reliable water source was life itself. A straightforward theory suggests these basins were part of an ancient hydraulic system, practical reservoirs carved to capture and hold precious rain and snowmelt. Their smooth, impermeable surfaces would be ideal for minimizing seepage and evaporation, preserving every drop. Positioned high on the slopes, they could have used gravity to distribute water through channels to settlements or fields below, acting as natural settling tanks where silt would sink, leaving cleaner water for use. This hypothesis paints a picture of ingenious survival, turning the mountains into a managed landscape. Yet, when you look closer, this practical narrative begins to spring leaks. For a system designed to manage water, a surprising number of these basins show no evidence of the most critical components, inflow or outflow channels. Many are simply closed bowls with no carved grooves to guide water in or direct it out. Their placement also raises questions. Why place a water reservoir on an exposed, windy ridge where evaporation would be extreme, or far from any known ancient settlement or farmland? The most compelling argument against a purely utilitarian purpose is the craftsmanship itself. The effort required to achieve that geometric perfection, that flawless, polished finish in solid granite, is staggering. If the only goal was to hold water, a simpler, rougher hollow would have sufficed. This level of artistry seems disproportionate, an overinvestment for a simple storage tank. It is like using a masterfully crafted, gold-inlaid vase to store drinking water. The container becomes more significant than its contents. While water management was undoubtedly a part of the story in these arid zones, the hydraulic hypothesis alone cannot quench our curiosity. It fails to explain the ritualistic precision, the celestial alignments, and the profound choice to place such exquisite work in the most spiritually elevated, yet practically challenging locations. The true purpose of these basins likely flowed beyond simple practicality, merging the vital need for water with a deeper, more symbolic meaning we are still striving to understand. This ceremonial interpretation offers a powerful lens through which to view these silent stone forms. Many anthropologists propose that these were not practical containers at all, but sacred vessels, central to rituals performed in the thin air between earth and sky. Across the globe, mountains have consistently been revered as the dwelling places of deities, the thrones of powerful spirits, and gateways to other realms. To build in such a place was to engage directly with the divine. The sheer perfection of the basin's construction takes on a new meaning in this light. The flawless curves and seamless joins were not merely technical achievements, they were acts of devotion. This level of craftsmanship was a form of reverence, an offering in itself, honoring the gods with the most perfect work human hands could produce. What might these sacred vessels have held? They could have been filled with precious offerings of maize, rare oils, or ceremonial drinks, gifts left for the mountain spirits. In some cultures, water collected directly from mountain springs or rainfall is considered especially pure, imbued with the essence of the sacred peak. The basins would have been the perfect source for this holy water, used to bless individuals, anoint leaders, or sanctify objects in powerful initiation rites, functioning as ancient baptismal fonts for entire communities. Physical evidence found at some sites adds a tangible layer to this theory. Archaeologists have discovered residues of organic materials and the telltale signs of repeated, controlled fires within certain basins. This points towards their use in burnt offerings, where smoke and scent carried prayers upward, or in purification ceremonies where fire and herbs cleansed participants or sacred spaces. This ceremonial perspective does not dismiss the ingenuity of the builders, but reframes it. It suggests that their greatest motivation was not survival alone, but a deep, universal human need to connect with something greater than themselves, to mark the most majestic places on earth with permanent symbols of their faith. The basins become less of a puzzle and more of a testament, a physical prayer carved in stone, waiting for us to understand the language. Far out in the Atlantic Ocean, the volcanic peaks of the Canary Islands rise from the sea, home to another distinct chapter in this global story. Here, the Guanche people, living in complete isolation for over 1,000 years, carved their own enigmatic basins into the slopes of mountains like Mount Tade. Their separation from the mainland makes their similar stonework profoundly significant, an independent invention that speaks to a shared human instinct. The Guanche culture provides some of the most direct clues to potential uses. Historical accounts and archaeological evidence indicate that certain basins were integral to their complex mummification practices, used in the preparation and preservation of their departed. This was a sacred process, a final honor for community members, connecting these stone forms to the profound human experiences of life, memory, and what lies beyond. Yet other basins, positioned on high ridges with clear sightlines to the horizon, seem to have served a completely different, yet equally vital purpose. They align with the rising and setting of specific stars, particularly the sun at the solstices and the bright star Canopus, which held immense navigational and ceremonial importance for this island society. The very rock they worked with adds another layer of uniqueness. This is not the dense granite of Siberia or the Andes, but volcanic tuff and basalt, a material that presents its own challenges and opportunities for the stone carver. It is often softer, allowing for different techniques, yet it still required immense skill to shape with the geometric precision we find. The existence of the Guanche basins forces a powerful conclusion. This was not a technology that spread from a single source. This was a profound idea that emerged again and again, a fundamental human drive to ascend to the highest places and, through perfect stone, to engage with the cycles of the cosmos and the deepest mysteries of existence. But the stone holds secrets beyond what the eye can see. Recent investigations have uncovered a startling new dimension to these mountain basins, their remarkable acoustic properties. When struck gently, many of these carved forms do not just make a sound, they sing. They resonate at specific, pure frequencies, creating harmonic vibrations that you can feel through the rock beneath your feet. This is not a dull thud, but a clear, sustained tone, as if the mountain itself is humming in response. Picture water from a melting glacier trickling through a series of these connected basins, each one adding its own distinct note to a natural, flowing melody. This was likely no accident. The builders often positioned these resonant stones within natural amphitheaters, bowl-shaped valleys or curved rock faces that would act as perfect amplifiers, carrying these sacred sounds for miles across the silent peaks. For a community gathered below, the experience would have been profound, a vibration that was both heard and felt in the chest, a physical connection to the ritual unfolding high above. This discovery has sparked compelling theories about sound-based ceremonies. The consistent frequencies suggest the basins could have been used as massive, primitive musical instruments, their tones employed to induce states of meditation, to mark the phases of a ceremony, or to call participants to gather. Some researchers speculate, though it remains highly theoretical, that an advanced understanding of resonance could have had other applications, perhaps related to the precise movement of the very stones used in construction. While such ideas push the boundaries of conventional history, the fundamental truth is undeniable. The ancient builders possessed a sophisticated grasp of sonic principles, weaving harmony and vibration into their sacred architecture. They were not just carving stone, they were tuning the mountain, transforming it into a colossal instrument for spiritual practice. This acoustic layer deepens the mystery exponentially, revealing a culture that sought to engage not just with the visual spectacle of the heavens, but with the very music of the world they revered. Determining the true age of these silent stone witnesses is one of the most formidable challenges we face. Without organic materials like wood, bone, or charcoal trapped within the stonework, the gold standard of archaeological dating, radiocarbon analysis, is completely useless. We are left to piece together a timeline from circumstantial evidence, a detective story written in stone and lichen. Experts carefully measure the slow, granular weathering of the rock surfaces, calculating how many centuries of wind and rain it would take to create that specific patina. They study the growth rates of lichens colonizing the basins, using these living clocks to establish a minimum age. Sometimes, if a basin is found near a datable artifact, like a piece of pottery or a tool, it provides a fragile thread of connection to a known historical period. But these methods are imprecise at best, their margins of error stretching across hundreds of years, a vast span of time in which entire civilizations could rise and fall. The puzzle is further complicated by evidence of reuse. Many basins show subtle signs of modification, their original form altered by a later culture that found its own purpose for the ancient stone. A smooth rim might be recut or a new channel carefully added, indicating that these structures remained significant long after their initial creation. In some rare cases, the geological story of the mountain itself provides a clue. If a basin is found on a rock surface that was only exposed after a glacier retreated, we know it must be younger than that glacial movement. Yet even this only gives us a minimum age, a starting point in a vast, unknown past. This profound dating difficulty leaves us with a fundamental, unanswered question. Are we looking at a single, interconnected cultural phenomenon that spanned the globe, a shared idea that traveled impossible distances? Or are we witnessing the beautiful, independent birth of the same profound concept, emerging again and again across different continents and millennia, as a universal human response to the mountains and the sky? The stone holds the answer, but it refuses to speak in a language of years and dates. High in the arid cliffs of the Himalayan kingdom of Mustang, the the stone basins are carved into a landscape that feels like the edge of the world. Perched along ancient trade routes that once connected Tibet to the lower valleys, these structures represent one of the most extreme and inaccessible examples of this global puzzle. Reaching them requires navigating treacherous paths at altitudes that steal your breath, a journey that underscores the immense determination of their creators. Their placement was clearly strategic, situated along the few viable corridors where travelers and traders would cross the formidable mountain passes. It is easy to envision weary caravans pausing here, using these stone bowls to collect precious water from melting snow, a simple, practical theory that seems to fit. Yet, as with so many of these sites, the full story is far more complex and layered. The dry, cold air of Mustang has acted as a perfect preservative, freezing these carvings in time. On the smoothest surfaces, the tool marks remain startlingly clear, etched into the stone with a crispness rarely seen elsewhere. You can trace the individual strikes and grooves, a direct connection to the hands that worked this rock centuries or even millennia ago. This clarity offers archaeologists a rare window into the construction process, revealing a sophisticated understanding of how to shape hard stone with both power and finesse. But the history of these basins is not a single, unbroken line. While Tibetan Buddhist traditions in the region have since incorporated some of these forms into meditation practices, using them as focal points for contemplation, their origins almost certainly reach back to a much older, pre-Buddhist past. The local oral histories often speak of powerful nature spirits and deities associated with these high places, suggesting the basins were already ancient and sacred long before Buddhism arrived. This is the recurring pattern, the cultural layering that makes the search for a single, original purpose so difficult. A structure built for one powerful reason, perhaps tied to the worship of mountain spirits or the observation of celestial events, is later adopted by a new culture that sees its own value in the form. The practical need for water for travelers seamlessly blends with a spiritual need for a sacred space, one meaning folding into another until they become inseparable. The Mustang Basins stand as a powerful reminder that these are not static artifacts with one fixed answer. They are living monuments to the human impulse to find meaning in the high places, to build something enduring, and to continually rediscover and reinterpret the mysteries left behind by those who came before. These stone basins could have served as the world's oldest and most durable calendars, their silent faces tracking the passage of seasons with unerring precision. Some researchers propose that the interplay of light and shadow was the key. On the dawn of a solstice, a single beam of sunlight might strike the lip of one specific basin, its rim casting a shadow that perfectly bisects the stone bowl's interior only on that one day of the year. At other sites, the arrangement of multiple basins creates a more complex choreography. As the sun's position shifts across the sky, different basins are illuminated in a precise sequence, a slow-moving dance of light and stone that marks the weeks and months. This was not a simple sundial. It was a grand architectural calendar carved directly into the mountaintop, a permanent record of celestial knowledge. The purpose of such a sophisticated system would have been profound. For communities dependent on agriculture, knowing the exact timing of the solstices and equinoxes was not mere observation, it was survival. It told them when to plant their seeds to catch the spring rains and when to harvest before the first frost. These stone markers could synchronize life across vast territories, signaling the time for communal planting or the start of seasonal migrations. They also governed the rhythm of spiritual life, setting the dates for religious festivals and ceremonies that honored the cycles of nature. This interpretation transforms our view of the builders. They were not just skilled artisans, they were master astronomers and mathematicians who found a way to etch their understanding of time itself into the very landscape. They encoded the movements of the sun into immutable granite, creating a legacy that would outlast any parchment or spoken word. The mountain peak became both observatory and library, a place where humanity could read the story of the year written in sunlight and shadow. A world away from the lonely mountain peaks, the massive stone monolith of Siberia rock rises from the Sri Lankan jungle. This fortress complex, crowned with palace ruins, presents a different kind of precision-carved mystery. Here, the enigma is not one of isolation, but of integration, where sophisticated stone basins are woven into a sprawling network of hydraulic genius. The entire summit is girdled by a complex system of channels and tanks, all carved directly into the living rock. These are not rough cisterns. They are polished, geometrically perfect containers, their surfaces smoothed to a mirror-like finish that seems to defy their great age. Their flawless symmetry and exacting craftsmanship feel ceremonial, as if the act of holding water was itself a sacred art. While they served the undeniable practical needs of a royal citadel, their artistic perfection suggests a purpose that flowed far beyond mere utility. The builders of Siberia demonstrated a mastery over water and stone that feels almost modern, with pressure-controlled systems and gravity-fed networks that channeled rainwater with elegant efficiency. This technological brilliance, appearing in a culture separated by vast oceans from the Andes or the Himalayas, forces a profound question upon us. Are we seeing evidence of a forgotten thread of knowledge, a school of advanced engineering that somehow connected distant parts of the ancient world? Or does Siberia stand as a powerful monument to parallel invention, proving that humanity's drive to shape perfect stone vessels emerged independently across continents, a shared solution to different environmental and spiritual challenges? The rock itself offers no easy answer, only the silent, polished testimony of its perfect tanks. These silent stone forms could have been the ancient world's lighthouses, guiding travelers across the treacherous sea of mountains. A compelling theory suggests they functioned as sophisticated way stations, carved along the high ridges and passes of ancient trade routes. Their prominent placement makes perfect sense for navigation, standing as permanent, unmistakable landmarks against a shifting landscape of rock and sky. A traveler lost in a sudden fog or a blinding snowstorm would find immense relief in spotting one of these familiar stone bowls, a known point on a mental map that confirmed they were still on the right, perilous path. Some researchers propose that the basins themselves could have been used to hold signal fires after dark, their stone walls containing the flames while casting a beacon visible for miles across the dark valleys. Others suggest they might have been filled with water to reflect the sun's rays, or even with rare, gleaming minerals, creating a brilliant flash of light to catch the eye of a distant merchant caravan. The geographical evidence adds weight to this idea, with many basins found strung along known ancient pathways, like a chain of stone breadcrumbs left through the highest, most dangerous sections of the journey. Yet, for all its logical appeal, this navigational theory begins to falter under closer scrutiny. While it explains their placement along some routes, it completely fails to account for the many other basins found in utterly remote locations, far from any evidence of a trail or a trading network. More fundamentally, it cannot justify the extraordinary craftsmanship. Why would a culture go to such extreme lengths, mastering the art of shaping granite with geometric perfection, simply to create a signpost? The effort is completely disproportionate to the stated goal. A simple pile of stones, a cairn, would have served as a perfectly effective and far easier to build marker. The sheer artistry involved, the polished surfaces and flawless curves, speaks to a purpose far deeper than mere utility. It seems more likely that if these structures did aid travelers, it was a secondary benefit, a happy coincidence for those who passed by a place that was already sacred. The true reason for their existence was carved into the stone itself, a meaning that went far beyond simply showing the way from one valley to the next. The volcanic highlands of central Mexico hold their own silent version of this global riddle. Scattered across the slopes of peaks like Toluca and Malinche, you find stone basins carved with the same unnerving precision as those in the Andes or the Himalayas. These are not the creations of the mighty Aztec Empire, whose history we know so well. They belong to a much deeper, more obscure past, a time before the great cities of Tenochtitlan or Teotihuacan rose from the valley floor. The existence of these forms here, in a completely different hemisphere, challenges the very framework of our historical understanding. How could cultures separated by the vast, impassable expanse of the Amazon rainforest and the Andes Mountains produce such strikingly similar stone artifacts? The craftsmanship provides a direct, tangible link across continents, a silent conversation in stone that seems to defy the isolation we once assumed defined the ancient world. The material itself tells a story of adaptation. Unlike the hard granite of other sites, these Mexican basins are carved from volcanic rock, a substance with a different texture and hardness. Yet the results are the same: geometric perfection and smooth, polished interiors that speak to a shared, obsessive standard. This suggests the builders were not simply copying a form. They were applying a core set of principles to the specific geology they found, mastering each new stone with the same profound skill. Local traditions have long woven these basins into the fabric of spiritual life. Oral histories speak of ceremonies dedicated to Tlaloc, the powerful god of rain and fertility, where offerings were placed in these stone vessels to plead for life-giving water. The basins, positioned high on the volcanic peaks where clouds first gather, were seen as direct conduits to the divine, a place where the human world could interact with the forces that controlled the weather and the harvest. This spiritual context resonates deeply with the ceremonial theories from other continents, painting a picture of a shared human impulse to connect with powerful natural forces from the highest possible vantage point. The Mexican volcanic belt does not offer a simple answer, but it adds a crucial piece to the puzzle. It proves this was not an isolated phenomenon of the Andes or the mountains of Asia. It was a global occurrence, a recurring motif in the story of humanity, appearing independently in both the Old World and the New. What profound, universal human experience, what common thread in our collective consciousness, led us to climb the same heights and carve the same perfect shapes again and again across the entire span of the ancient earth? Another possibility emerges from the smoke and fire of ancient industry. Could these immaculate stone basins have functioned as primitive smelting operations? A small but compelling school of thought suggests these high-altitude sites were chosen for metalworking, their exposed locations acting as perfect natural draft furnaces. The steady, powerful winds that sweep across mountain peaks would have provided a constant, free source of oxygen to stoke the flames, a critical advantage for reaching the extreme temperatures needed to extract metal from raw ore. The basins themselves, with their precise, contained shapes, would have been ideal for holding ceramic crucibles, their stone walls helping to maintain a consistent, intense heat while protecting the surrounding area from fire. The choice of granite, a stone highly resistant to thermal shock, makes perfect sense in this context, as it could withstand repeated heating and cooling cycles without cracking. Yet for all its logical appeal, this metallurgical hypothesis begins to crack under the weight of contradictory evidence. If these were active smelting sites, Where is the industrial debris? Archaeologists find almost no traces of the telltale byproducts, no layers of slag, no scattered metallic residues, no fragments of broken crucibles that would litter a true workshop. Furthermore, many of these basins are situated in geological zones completely devoid of accessible metal ores, requiring an implausible effort to transport raw materials up the mountain, only to then carry the refined metal back down. The final, most profound objection lies in the artistry itself. The ceremonial precision, the celestial alignments, the flawless polish, all feel profoundly mismatched with the sooty, practical demands of an industrial forge. Why pour such spiritual reverence into a factory floor? While we cannot completely dismiss the idea that some basins might have been repurposed for metalwork by later peoples, as a primary explanation for their original creation, the metallurgical theory feels like an incomplete answer. It addresses the how but completely fails to explain the why, leaving the deeper mystery of their purpose still glowing, hot and unanswered in the thin mountain air. The mist-shrouded quarries of the Scottish Highlands hold their own ancient secret. Here, in the rugged expanse of the Cairngorms, you find stone basins carved directly into the living bedrock, their smooth, worn forms emerging from the heather like the bones of the land itself. For centuries, these enigmatic features have resisted explanation, their origins so lost to time that local folklore filled the void with stories of fairies and otherworldly beings. The legends speak of the Sith, a powerful supernatural race who used these stone bowls for their own inscrutable purposes, a poetic explanation for something beyond human memory. This deep connection to folklore sets the Scottish basins apart, framing them not just as archaeological puzzles, but as living pieces of a cultural landscape. Unlike the constructed basins of the Andes, these are almost always monolithic, carved in situ from the very granite that forms the mountain. This choice of creation speaks to a different kind of relationship with the stone, one of integration rather than assembly. The technical challenge would have been immense, requiring the carver to work with the natural contours and fissures of the bedrock, shaping a perfect form from an imperfect canvas. Dating these carvings is a task fraught with difficulty, made nearly impossible by the region's violent glacial history. The immense ice sheets that once scraped across these mountains could have either erased earlier evidence or exposed fresh rock surfaces for later carving, leaving us with no clear starting point in time. The persistent, damp climate adds another layer of complexity, accelerating the growth of lichens and the process of weathering, which can make a basin look far older than it might truly be. This environmental adaptation is key to understanding the global nature of this phenomenon. The highland basins had to withstand not just wind and sun, but freezing temperatures, ice, and relentless moisture. Their enduring forms, still holding their geometric shape after who knows how many centuries, prove that the underlying idea was robust enough to be translated from the dry, thin air of the Andes to the wet, cold bluster of northern Europe. The presence of these mysterious stones in Scotland is a quiet but powerful reminder. This is not a mystery confined to one continent or one culture. It is a thread woven through the entire tapestry of the ancient world, a silent question asked from every high place on earth. Perhaps the most ingenious theory reimagines these stone bowls not as ritual objects but as specialized gardens. An emerging ecological interpretation suggests these basins were designed to create perfect microenvironments, tiny, controlled ecosystems high in the mountains. Their precise dimensions were not just an artistic choice, they were functional. The depth and width of a basin could determine how much sunlight it captured, how it retained heat from the sun-warmed rock, and how it collected and held moisture from rain or dew. A shallow, wide bowl might create a warm, dry pocket ideal for a sun-loving medicinal herb. A deeper, narrower one could maintain a cool, damp soil perfect for a particular type of moss or fungus. This was a form of high-altitude horticulture, a way to cultivate species that would not survive in the wild on the exposed mountainside. Evidence from some sites supports this fascinating idea. Residue analysis has detected traces of soil amendments in certain basins, materials like crushed shell or specific clays that would have altered the pH or nutrient content to suit a particular plant. Other basins show unusually high concentrations of minerals like selenium or quartz, elements known to be favored by certain sacred or medicinal species. This points to a profound understanding of ethnobotany, the relationship between people and plants. The high, isolated locations make perfect sense in this context. They provided a natural greenhouse, safe from foraging animals and protected from the cross-pollination of common valley plants. Here, a community could cultivate a rare orchid for its ceremonial fragrance, a specific mushroom for its visionary properties, or a potent herb for healing, all in a controlled, secret garden under the open sky. This ecological perspective beautifully bridges the practical and the sacred. Tending these high gardens was a scientific act requiring deep knowledge of soil, climate, and biology. Yet the plants grown there were likely anything but ordinary. They were the keys to spiritual experiences, the ingredients for medicines, the sacred substances that connected the community to the forces of nature. The stone basin, in this light, becomes both laboratory and temple, a place where humanity nurtured its most vital relationships with the living world. In the rugged heart of Central Asia, the Altai Mountains weave a tapestry of stone across 4 modern nations. Here, the mystery of the basins deepens within a landscape defined by movement. These were not the lands of vast, settled empires, but the ancient homelands of nomadic pastoralists, cultures who followed their herds across the high valleys. Yet they too felt the powerful urge to carve these precise forms into the mountains. The basins of the Altai are rarely solitary monuments. They are elements of a much larger story. They sit amidst sprawling fields of petroglyphs, where ancient artists carved images of stags, hunters, and chariots into the rock, and they are neighbors to great circular burial mounds that dot the slopes. This integration is a vital clue. The basins were not isolated oddities. They were woven into the very fabric of a sacred and funerary landscape, a permanent part of a culture that was otherwise constantly on the move. Their placement reveals another layer of intention. Many are carefully positioned to frame specific, distant mountain peaks on the horizon. This is more than just a beautiful view. It suggests a sophisticated form of ancient surveying or geodetic marking. For a nomadic people, understanding the precise lay of the land, the locations of passes and sacred peaks, was a matter of survival and spiritual navigation. A basin aligned with a particular summit could have served as a fixed point of reference, a permanent anchor in a world of seasonal migration. This function transforms the basins from simple ritual objects into tools of landscape mastery, a way to encode vital geographical knowledge directly into the living rock. The Altai was a historic crossroads, a place where Turkic, Mongolian, and other ancient traditions met and mingled. This cultural exchange likely influenced the purpose and design of the basins, making them a fluid symbol rather than a fixed artifact. Their presence here proves the basin phenomenon was not exclusive to great agricultural civilizations. It was a universal human response, a profound idea that could be adapted by anyone who looked upon the high places and felt compelled to leave a permanent, perfect mark. Another layer of this mystery may lie deep beneath our feet, in the restless movements of the earth itself. many of these mountain ranges, from the Andes to the Himalayas, are among the most seismically active zones on the planet. This geographical fact has led a growing number of researchers to a startling hypothesis. Could these precisely leveled stone basins have functioned as an ancient form of earthquake detection? The principle is deceptively simple. Imagine a basin perfectly filled with still water. If the ground beneath it began to tilt ever so slightly in the days or hours before a major seismic event, that subtle shift would be revealed by a corresponding change in the water's level. A drop on one side, a rise on the other. This would provide a crucial, visible warning of the powerful forces gathering underground. The acoustic properties we discussed earlier could have played a role here as well. The resonant frequencies of the stone might have acted like a giant stethoscope, amplifying faint subterranean vibrations and rumbles that are inaudible to the human ear, turning the mountain itself into a listening device. For cultures living in the constant shadow of potential disaster, the motivation to develop such an early warning system would have been incredibly strong. The ability to predict ground movements, even by a few hours, could have meant the difference between safety and profound loss, allowing communities to move to safer ground. This theory beautifully merges the practical with the profound. It suggests that the drive to understand and predict the powerful forces of nature was a central part of the spiritual and scientific life of these ancient peoples. The mountain peak was not just a place to reach for the heavens, but also a platform to listen to the whispers of the earth. However, this compelling idea remains in the realm of informed speculation. The main challenge is a lack of direct evidence. While we know these cultures experienced seismic activity, we have not yet found clear historical records or complementary artifacts that definitively point to a practice of seismic monitoring. Without this, the seismic theory, though elegant, is difficult to prove, yet its very existence is what makes the study of these basins so captivating. It demonstrates how our own modern scientific perspectives can cast an entirely new light on ancient technologies we are only beginning to comprehend. What we might have initially dismissed as purely ritualistic could, in fact, represent a brilliant, forgotten form of applied science, a testament to humanity's timeless quest to read the signs of our living world. The highlands of Ethiopia add a profound African chapter to this global stone narrative. In the breathtaking Simien Mountains, often called the roof of Africa, you find these same precisely carved basins gazing out over landscapes of deep gorges and volcanic peaks. Their presence here is especially significant because they are linked to Pre-Axumite cultures, societies that flourished in the highlands long before the famous Kingdom of Axum rose to power. These were communities that developed in remarkable isolation, separated from the Mediterranean world by the vast Sahara and the Red Sea. Yet they too felt the powerful, universal urge to carve these perfect forms into the highest places. The Ethiopian basins share the core mystery, but they also speak with a unique local voice. Many feature intricate decorative elements unseen elsewhere, patterns of spirals, crosses, or symbolic grooves carved around their rims. This artistic flair suggests these were not borrowed ideas, but a powerful indigenous tradition, an independent response to the same fundamental human impulses that stirred in the Andes and the Himalayas. The environment itself shaped their purpose. The Ethiopian plateau is a world of distinct seasons, with a generous rainy period followed by a long, dry spell. In this context, the basins take on a vital role in survival, potentially serving as sophisticated cisterns to capture and store precious rainwater for communities and their livestock through the arid months. But as always, the sheer quality of the craftsmanship pushes beyond mere utility. The effort to achieve such smooth, geometric perfection in hard basalt rock, often in extremely remote locations, hints at a deeper ceremonial layer. These were likely dual-purpose structures, brilliantly designed to meet the critical need for water while also serving as sacred focal points for rituals honoring the mountain spirits who controlled the rains. The Ethiopian examples complete the circle. From the Americas to Asia, from Europe to Africa, the same enigmatic form appears. This is not a story of cultural diffusion, of an idea traveling from a single source. It is the story of something innate to the human spirit, a shared impulse that emerged independently across the planet, compelling us to ascend, to shape perfect stone, and to seek connection with the forces of creation at the roof of the world. The stone itself holds a silent language of numbers and angles, a mathematical code embedded in its smooth curves. When researchers take precise measurements of these basins, a startling pattern emerges, one that speaks of a deep and sophisticated understanding of geometry. The circular basins are not merely round, they often approach the perfection of a true circle with a deviation so minimal it seems impossible for hand tools. The rectangular examples are not rough approximations. They showcase crisp right angles and sides that maintain consistent, harmonious proportions across entire complexes. At some sites, the arrangement of multiple basins reveals an even more advanced grasp of abstract principles. The distances between them, or the angles formed by connecting their centers, can reflect an understanding of Pythagorean triples or incorporate ratios that closely mirror the golden mean, a proportion celebrated for its aesthetic balance. This is not the work of artisans simply copying a pleasing shape. This is the signature of geometers, individuals who thought in terms of abstract relationships and universal constants, and who knew how to translate those invisible truths into enduring stone. The most profound aspect of this discovery is its global consistency. How could builders in the Peruvian highlands and craftspeople in the Armenian mountains, separated by a world of ocean and desert, both arrive at and apply the same complex mathematical concepts? Were these ideas carried along forgotten routes of ancient exchange, a shared curriculum of knowledge that spanned the globe? Or does this point to a more fundamental truth that the human mind, when confronted with the challenge of perfection, independently discovers the same elegant solutions? The presence of this mathematics fundamentally changes the nature of these objects. A simple water tank does not require the golden ratio. A basic ritual bowl needs no Pythagorean alignment. The effort to encode such advanced principles into the rock suggests these basins were far more than practical or even ceremonial items. They were carefully designed artifacts, perhaps intended to embody a cosmic order, to make permanent a profound understanding of the mathematical underpinnings of reality itself. This mathematical dimension forces us to reconsider the very identity of the builders. They were not merely stoneworkers. They were philosophers of form, architects of an invisible world of number and ratio, who chose the highest peaks on earth as their blackboard. This incredible preservation is a mystery in its own right. How is it that these ancient stone basins have withstood thousands of years of relentless wind, freezing temperatures, and powerful earthquakes, while structures built just centuries ago show far more decay? The answer is a testament to a forgotten school of engineering. The builders possessed a profound, almost intuitive understanding of their materials. They did not simply choose any rock. They selected specific types of granite and basalt for their density and crystalline structure, stones naturally resistant to cracking and erosion. They then placed these basins with strategic genius, often tucking them into natural alcoves or orienting them in a way that deflected the prevailing winds and minimized direct exposure to the most damaging weather. Every contour of the stone was part of the design, with smooth, rounded curves that allowed water and ice to slide off effortlessly, preventing the slow, destructive work of pooling and freezing. This was not random placement, it was a sophisticated application of environmental science. The builders were thinking like geologists and architects simultaneously, reading the landscape to find the most stable, sheltered locations on an otherwise violent mountainside. This careful site selection protected the basins from landslides and rockfalls, and their monolithic construction, carved from the living bedrock itself, gave them a unity and strength that assembled structures could never match. There were no weak joints to fail, no separate stones that could be shaken apart by tremors. The entire form was one solid piece of mountain. This intentional, masterful approach to longevity forces a humbling realization. These cultures were not just building for their own time, they were building for eternity. They invested unimaginable effort into creating features meant to outlast their civilizations, to carry a message or a function across a span of time they could not possibly live to see. In their relentless pursuit of permanence, they achieved a level of durability that, in these specific, extreme conditions, sometimes surpasses what we accomplish today. What profound urgency, what timeless purpose could have inspired a plan not for a generation, but for the ages? Side by side, the basins from Peru and Armenia could be siblings, separated at birth by an entire world. Their consistent proportions form a silent argument against coincidence. The same geometric precision appears in the highlands of Ethiopia, the cold peaks of Siberia, and the volcanic slopes of Mexico. These are not just vaguely similar hollows. We see the same insistence on crisp angles, the same depth-to-width ratio in the bowls, the same obsession with a polished, almost liquid smoothness on the interior surface. This exacting standard was applied to different types of stone, from hard granite to volcanic tuff, proving the builders were not just copying a shape, but were masters of a universal principle of form. The similarities extend beyond the object itself to its relationship with the landscape. Whether in the Andes or the Altai, the basins are consistently placed on prominent, spiritually significant peaks. They are frequently found near the sources of springs, yet rarely show signs of heavy erosion from flowing water, and they repeatedly align with celestial events, catching the solstice sun or framing a specific constellation. This is a pattern of behavior, a shared set of choices made by cultures who supposedly never met. So how do we explain this global echo? One possibility is cultural contact across oceans, a forgotten thread of exchange that wove these distant highlands together. This would rewrite our maps of ancient trade and migration, suggesting a level of global interconnectedness we are only beginning to suspect. The other, perhaps even more profound possibility, is parallel development. This would mean that the human response to the mountain environment, when driven by a certain level of technological skill and spiritual need, inevitably produces the same result. The same fundamental questions about life, time, and the cosmos, when pondered from the roof of the world, led to the same profound answer carved in stone. This comparative analysis does not offer a simple solution. Instead, it deepens the wonder, forcing us to consider that the connections in our human story run far deeper and are far more mysterious than we ever imagined. Legends whispered through generations offer their own interpretation of the stone. Across the world, indigenous oral traditions have preserved the memory of these basins, their meanings transformed yet never fully erased by the passage of time. In the high Andes, native stories describe them as the footprints of gods, places where celestial beings once touched the earth. Himalayan lore tells of enlightened masters who used these smooth depressions for deep meditation, their perfect forms aiding concentration in the thin air. European folklore, from the Scottish Highlands to the Carpathian Mountains, often attributes the basins to the work of giants or magical creatures like fairies, beings of immense power who shaped the land for their own mysterious rites. These narratives are not literal histories, but they are far from meaningless. They are a form of cultural memory, a way for later peoples to explain and honor the powerful, inexplicable artifacts they found in their sacred high places. The consistency in these themes is what captures the attention of researchers. The recurring ideas of ritual purification, connection to deities, and celestial observation, found in stories from continents apart, suggest these legends captured an essential truth about the basin's original significance. They remember that these were not ordinary places but points of contact with something greater. While the specific ceremony or the name of the god may have been lost, the profound sense of purpose, the aura of the sacred, was faithfully passed down. This offers a valuable, if ambiguous, clue. It tells us that for millennia, long after the original builders were gone, people looked upon these perfect stone forms and understood intuitively that they were standing in a place of power, a site that demanded reverence and inspired stories worthy of its mystery. The silent stone is finally beginning to speak, its secrets teased out by the gentle hum of modern machines. Ground-penetrating radar now sweeps across these ancient sites, sending invisible pulses deep into the earth. What it reveals is astonishing, a hidden architecture lying just beneath our feet. Beneath solitary surface basins, the radar often maps out complex networks of channels and underground chambers, proving these features were never truly alone. They were merely the visible tip of a much larger subterranean system, a hidden geometry that changes our entire understanding of their scale and purpose. From the sky, drones equipped with high-resolution cameras and thermal sensors capture a perspective once reserved for the mountain gods themselves. They fly over remote ridges, identifying patterns of basins arranged in vast, sprawling formations that are completely invisible from the ground. These aerial surveys have uncovered alignments that stretch for miles, connecting multiple peaks in a single, intentional design, a celestial map written across the entire landscape. Back in the laboratory, the story continues at a microscopic level. Researchers employ sensitive chemical residue analysis on the basin surfaces, searching for the ghost of what these stones once held. The results are starting to paint a vivid picture. In one basin, they might find traces of specific pollens from high-altitude medicinal herbs. In another, the faint chemical signature of fermented beverages or rare oils used in ceremonial practices. Elsewhere, the detection of concentrated minerals like hematite or copper suggests some basins were used for processing pigments, their smooth surfaces acting as perfect grinding plates for creating sacred paints. Perhaps the most revealing technology is 3D laser scanning. These scanners create a perfect digital twin of each basin, capturing measurements so precise they can detect tool marks down to a fraction of a millimeter. This digital record allows scientists to analyze the geometry with an exactness never before possible, confirming the advanced mathematical principles encoded in the stone and comparing examples from across the globe with absolute certainty. This fusion of traditional archaeology and 21st century science is not about replacing one mystery with a simple answer. Instead, it is building a layered, complex portrait of these sites, revealing them as multifunctional centers where the practical, the scientific, and the sacred seamlessly merge. We are learning that the question was never whether a basin was for water or ceremony or astronomy. The profound truth is that for the people who built them, it was likely for all these things at once, a unified understanding of a world where every element was connected. Each new scan, each chemical analysis, adds another piece to a puzzle that has waited for generations, bringing us closer than ever to hearing the full story these mountains have guarded for millennia. The same perfection that has preserved these stone basins for millennia now faces its greatest threat, our own curiosity. As their fame spreads, a steady stream of visitors ascends to these remote peaks, each footstep a potential agent of erosion on fragile mountain ecosystems. A single touch repeated thousands of times can wear down the sharp, tool-marked edges that have survived for centuries. The impulse to take a small stone as a souvenir, while understandable, irrevocably chips away at the archaeological record, removing pieces of a puzzle we are still trying to solve. Even well-meaning attempts to clean or stabilize the sites can backfire, as modern materials and techniques often interact poorly with ancient stone, causing unintended damage that accelerates decay. This creates a profound dilemma, a tension between our desire to share these wonders and our duty to protect them. How do we allow the world to experience these marvels without loving them to death? Some nations are pioneering careful solutions. At certain high-altitude sites in Peru, access is now strictly limited to guided tours along designated pathways, preventing visitors from accidentally climbing on the fragile structures. In Armenia, authorities have closed the most vulnerable basins to the public entirely, relying instead on detailed 3D digital reconstructions that allow anyone to explore the sites virtually without causing any harm. These models are so precise they can be used for further research, offering a powerful tool for both preservation and education. This growing global effort highlights a shifting perspective. We are beginning to recognize that these are not indestructible monuments, but delicate artifacts carrying fragile information. The very act of visiting them must become a form of stewardship. Simple actions make all the difference, staying on marked trails, never touching the carved surfaces, and leaving every stone in its place. The survival of these enigmatic structures now depends on a collective commitment to responsible tourism. Their mystery has endured earthquakes and ice ages, but its greatest test may be our own fascination and our willingness to ensure that these questions carved in stone remain for the next generation of seekers to ponder. Perhaps the true answer is not a single key that unlocks the mystery, but a ring of keys, each fitting a different door. The most profound insight emerging from decades of study is that we must let go of the search for one universal purpose. These basins defy such a simple solution. Instead, the most compelling path forward is a theoretical synthesis, a weaving together of the many threads of evidence into a richer, more complete tapestry. In one location, a basin might have been primarily a practical water reservoir for nomadic herders. In another, just a few valleys away, an identical form could have served as a sacred altar for celestial rites. Their function was not fixed in stone, but fluid, shaped by the immediate needs, beliefs, and knowledge of the people who used them. This integrated perspective allows for beautiful regional variations while still honoring the underlying global pattern. It acknowledges that for ancient societies, the world was not divided into separate boxes labeled practical, spiritual, and scientific. These concepts were woven together into a single, seamless understanding of life. A basin used to collect pure rainwater for drinking was simultaneously gathering a sacred substance for blessing. A stone perfectly aligned to track the solstice was both an agricultural calendar and a direct conduit to the divine. The meaning of these structures likely evolved over generations as new peoples discovered them and found their own purposes, layering new stories onto the old stone without ever erasing the original intention. This multifaceted approach does not make the mystery simpler, but it makes it truer to the complex nature of human history. It finally allows us to see these enigmatic forms not as problems to be solved, but as profound expressions of a universal human drive to connect with the world in all its dimensions, to survive within it, to understand its rhythms, and to find our place within its vast, beautiful, and mysterious order. Centuries of study have passed, yet the stone basins guard their deepest secrets with quiet resolve. We are left with fundamental questions that define the path forward for the next generation of explorers. The most pressing challenge remains time itself. Without a reliable method to date the rock carvings directly, we cannot know if we are looking at a single global phenomenon or a recurring idea born independently across millennia. Future research hinges on developing new scientific techniques, perhaps using lasers to measure the infinitesimal weathering of mineral crystals or analyzing the trapped electrons within the stone to finally assign a clear age to these silent sentinels. Alongside this, a monumental task awaits: the creation of a comprehensive global catalogue. Imagine a digital atlas plotting every known basin, detailing its dimensions, stone type, celestial alignments, and archaeological context. Such a resource would allow researchers in Peru to instantly compare their findings with new discoveries in Ethiopia, revealing patterns invisible from any single mountain peak. This work demands a truly interdisciplinary spirit, where archaeologists listen to geologists explain the mountain's formation, where astronomers verify alignments, and where materials scientists decode the secrets of the ancient tools. But perhaps the most profound insights will come from a source we have too often overlooked: the living oral traditions of indigenous communities. The stories passed down through generations hold pieces of this puzzle. Their deep cultural knowledge of the landscape, of ancestral practices, and of celestial cycles can provide a context that pure data cannot. A legend about a mountain spirit might point researchers toward a forgotten solstice alignment. A story about a ritual could explain a strange residue found in a basin. Collaborating respectfully with these knowledge holders is not just an ethical imperative, it is a scientific one, offering a bridge to understanding the intention behind the craftsmanship. The future of this mystery, therefore, lies in a delicate balance, a partnership between cutting-edge technology and ancient wisdom, between rigorous measurement and respectful listening. The unanswered questions are not a failure of our past efforts, but a beacon for our future ones, ensuring that the enigma of the high mountain basins will continue to call out to the curious for generations to come. These silent stone forms scattered across the highest peaks represent one of archaeology's most profound and enduring puzzles. They challenge the very foundations of what we believe about ancient cultures and their technological capabilities. From the mathematical precision carved into their curves to their inexplicable global distribution, these structures are not random artifacts. They are the physical evidence of sophisticated knowledge systems, a unified understanding of geometry, astronomy, and geology that we are only beginning to recognize. The sheer scope of their construction, from the Andes to the Altai, suggests a chapter of the human story where connection and comprehension may have reached farther than we ever imagined. We may never uncover a single, definitive purpose that explains every basin in every location. Their true meaning was likely as fluid as the water they sometimes held, shifting with the needs and beliefs of each culture that shaped them. Yet this very ambiguity is what makes their study so valuable. The ongoing investigation into these enigmatic stones does more than just probe a historical mystery. It reveals the remarkable ingenuity of our ancestors, their profound connection to the natural world, and their relentless drive to leave a permanent mark of their understanding on the planet. These silent sentinels stand as a permanent reminder that our past is far more complex, more interconnected, and more fascinating than any textbook could possibly contain. As research continues, blending cutting-edge science with ancient wisdom, these basins do not offer easy answers. Instead, they extend an enduring invitation to look upon our shared history with a sense of wonder, a dose of humility, and a renewed, boundless curiosity about the vast, untold chapters of the human journey.